over the shining halo of her blonde hair, reflected in the soft glow of the new moon. Oh, no, not that.
When's,
My boy, why did you ever decide to write
spots
for a living? You know, you could have gone into something interesting, like being a truck driver, with the open road in front of you and a motorcycle cop in back.
You asked interrogative questions, I did too. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Al?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric back with the soul of Detroit. And, you know, Sean could have done something interesting like being a truck driver, but he just didn't have enough bad jokes about history. So he had to stick with sports.
Is my mic on?
Yeah, it's on.
We're taking shots at Matt already. By the way, can I
Was
just
that
point...
a Matt reference?
I guess. Can I just point something out for our listeners, viewers, whatever you want to call these fine folks? So Mark's sitting over here with a laptop. You have paperwork. Yeah. Our guest, esteemed guest today, Kevin, has paperwork. I have an empty peanut butter cracker wrapper.
Yeah,
that pretty much sums it up.
It's not going to surprise anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Another long day of research for you.
Exactly. No, I come ready.
That's what happens when they stop giving free food to the sports writers. They have to hit the vending machine on the way to the stadium.
Well, this is an old school. It's a Lance. You'll recall those from the vending machines.
Now, are those the orange ones, or is that the toasted cracker?
I don't like the dye in them so much. But,
wow.
What? The food coloring.
You're missing something. The Planters ones, where there's so much grease in the cracker that it's almost like phyllo dough before you get to that ribbon of peanut butter, that's fantastic.
Listen to you. You could have been a food writer. Okay, Kevin, I'm going to be quiet for now for about 30 minutes.
There's a lot of pop-ups with cheese peanut butter crackers. The hipsters love them.
They're going to put a muzzle on me.
Thanks for listening, everybody. That was a great show.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
I'll
sorry.
be back in 45 minutes.
Next up, Marie Osborne, Dana Clark on the fives here.
I can't let this go. What do you mean you don't like the dye in something? Can you taste it?
No. I was just trying to have fun with the fluorescent color, but, it's like eating Flamin' Hot Cheetos, only with peanut butter and sugar in them.
Ooh.
There you go.
Sound good.
Your dietary...
Food coloring's fine. I had a red velvet cake, a piece of red velvet cake not that long ago. Right. That's chocolate cake with red dye. So there you go.
Sean is
I'm not anti-dye. Come on.
He's very visually oriented, which is why he'll be starting his own podcast soon.
Well, I'm certainly not a part of this one.
No, it's...
Okay, I'm going to pull the muzzle out.
My choice.
I'll be back in
30
minutes.
Don't leave.
So it's probably time for us to introduce everybody. That witty repartee didn't involve any member of the cast, but Sean Windsor was there, and so was Mark Fellhauer. And we have a very special guest today, Mr. Kevin Dietz. Kevin and I go way back to our time competing as a print reporter at the Free Press. Kevin was, of course, with the Defenders, and then Rescue 4, and then it was the Dreamweavers, and what was the other branding stuff they had? The Smoke 'em If You Got 'Ems.
Catchy little names.
Yeah, at Local 4. And then at some point, this guy named Steve Wilson comes to town and starts knocking people over, and I showed up on Flashpoint one time in a big fight with Adolph Mongo. And I think the news director said, "Oh, that's what we're looking for, somebody who's completely unhinged." And so they brought me over to Channel 4. And
Careful what you wish for?
Yes. Well, I think there was this crazy notion that if Elric turns out to be crazy all the time, then maybe we can somehow put the hammer on Dietz to take more money or do something else or something like that. And I went to see Kevin on the first day, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm hearing some stuff about there may be some notion that I'm here to somehow rattle you or replace you or something like that." I said, "That is absolutely not why I'm here." And Kevin just said, "Whatever, man."
I know it started out about you, Kevin. But this is how it goes. By the way, he did throw the third person in there.
This is called a backstory. Sometimes these help so people can understand.
Why is it
things.
always Elrician?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is.
I remember it that way. Yeah, I do remember it that way.
What, that anything starts out, "Oh, hi, how you doing, Kevin? Let me tell you about you for 15 minutes.
So we just got to the Kevin part. Maybe you could have interrupted on the me part if that was your concern. But Kevin said, "Do your thing." And over the next 18 months, it became abundantly clear why Kevin was there and why Kevin was going to continue to be there. And the whole time, there was no better colleague, no more helpful guy, and no more generous part of the Ruth to the Rescue and Rescue 4, sort of like Gladys Knight and the Pips, except the Pips were almost as big as Gladys. Kevin was the consummate professional, and just, in that same position, I would have said, I don't know if this guy's here to screw with me or not, but I'm gonna saw the boards right out from under him. And Kevin was awesome, man. I actually did not like Kevin that much until we worked together, and I like him a lot.
I do remember that. I remember saying you came up and said, "Look, I don't know why they brought me here. People are saying that
I said that
maybe you're
many
here to
times
replace
over the next
me."
18 months.
I said, "Hey, let me help you out. If you're here to replace me, let me help you out."
Exactly. Oh, you're the relief crew? Okay,
That's great.
That's right. Yeah, we were wondering who's going to start squeegeeing the peep show after me, so grab them up.
No, I was happy for you to succeed because coming from the newspaper and the stories that you guys were doing, I was thrilled to have some hard hitting journalism in the building and get after some stories. If they wanted to get rid of me because of that, so be it. But I was hopeful that we'd both stick around and start teaming up on stories, and we did get to do a little bit of that, not as much as we wanted.
Oh yeah, no. Every sweeps period, I would come in with all these ideas. They would
Nobody
shoot them
liked
all
them,
down.
right?
They would shoot them all down.
As usual, wherever you are.
And then
You're
they'd turn
brilliant.
to
Everybody
Kevin.
else is a fool. But go ahead.
So, okay, Mrs. Windsor didn't teach you any manners. So they'd turn to Kevin and they'd say, okay, this idiot doesn't have anything. What do you got, Kevin? And Kevin's like, well, I got this story, I got this story, I got this story. And they're like, can you give him a couple of those stories? And I was like, yes, can you please give me a couple of those stories? Because I'm drowning here. So in the 18 months I was there, did not go well. But Kevin was knocking it out of the park, continued to do so. And so we're happy to bring him here because I think a lot of us who watch Kevin on Channel 4 have heard him on WJR, have seen him here and there. But one of the big questions we have is, what is Kevin Dietz up to? And so we're going to spend some time talking about that, as well as take a little survey of some of his greatest hits, because contrary to Kevin's claims otherwise, he did some pretty hard-hitting journalism and did some great stories. I remember the abortionist story. That was friggin' incredible. And one of my favorite ones of all times, which I don't know if it qualifies as like hard-hitting public service journalism, but it was just a great Law and Order story. The rapper whose rap songs incriminated him, where he just like, I shot this bitch in the face and I hit her body on Mack Avenue, and it turned out that's exactly what he did. What was that?
The song was called Credit Card Fraud or something like that was the title of it.
It was testimony. I mean, it was like a grand jury transcript with a beat. And it was awesome. That was a great story.
What story do people come up to you that you think they remember the most? Because I think I have an idea what it.
So ML said we were going to talk about old stories. So because I'm old, I had to go back and look some of them up. And so I broke them down into the early days, the gotcha stories, stories that went national, and then stories that like are local impact stories, which are like things like I'm proud of or made a difference, that kind of thing. So I'm sure you don't want to hear about any of that.
Well, the one that pops in my mind, just because of being at Riff and when it hit.
Hold on, Naked Golf. Yeah, we knew this was coming.
It's there. It's there under gotcha stories, number one, right there.
It's got to be the one that people remember the most.
It's really not, honestly. At
Naked
the time,
bowling really stood out.
At the time, it was huge. I mean, it was July. Ratings are usually in the tank, but it's a ratings month, and we hit this thing. We aired 16 stories on Naked Golf in the month of July. That's every other day.
Let me guess. Neil Goldstein was the news director at that time.
I don't know if he was there yet. I don't think he was. I think he came after.
Oh, wow.
What does that mean? What's that a reference to?
Neil Goldstein loved stories that had sex in them. In fact, just before I came on, you may remember Mark Santia did the series on former porn star is now a housewife trying to make the transition. I was like, every day there was just a story that was very thinly constructed about this woman with gigantic fake breast implants. And I was watching him. I'm thinking, what am I getting myself into?
But let me
and then I
guess,
found out later that Neil was thinking of hiring her as a producer. So this was kind of trying to figure out what's going on.
I did under his guidance. I did do Porn in the Park, which was a 3-part
remember
series.
that one. I
was
do
pretty
remember that
interesting.
one.
We found in Metro Times somebody advertising for models, and so we had one of the staff and one of the interns apply for the job, and we set up hidden cameras at the restaurant. And this guy's like, "Yeah, it'll just be modeling." And then when they showed up,
it never is.
They wanted them to be tied up and show pictures. It wasn't complete nudity, but it was weird. They wanted pictures of their feet and different things, and they would be in bondage. And so we wanted to play it a little further, and so they agreed to be in the movie, but they wanted to watch one first. So they were more comfortable. So anyway, they go out and they pick the spot where it's going to be. We go out with our camera crews and vans. We're hiding in the woods with cameras, and they show up and they bind this woman to a tree, and they're having some sort of crazy whatever this storyline is, I don't know. But we pop out, and start chasing him. And it's one of those chases where he was a good mile from his car. we just went on and on and on and on chasing this guy.
I imagine that did really well.
So that's where the Channel 4 orientation routine came from.
Yeah, you got to get in shape. It did really well in the ratings. I think it was like a 3-part series. But the funniest thing about that story is a year or two later, the guy, he had some crazy name, like a letter. I don't know.
Not like 2 letters.
Yeah.
I think it was just
clear that up.
One of those.
But it was a strange name. But anyway, he decided to make a porn movie about me, and he called it Channel 5 or Channel 6 or something like that. And the storyline in that was
Channel 4?
That they turned the tables, and they knew that this was a ruse, a news story.
Oh.
And so they captured all of the participants, the camera people and me, and they beat us up and did some other things. But I'd like to get a copy of that if anyone has one out there.
Well, the other thing, not that I want to hang on the sex topic, but people probably don't realize that the franchise that made Chris Hansen famous started with Kevin Dietz here in Detroit. And my favorite line was when the guy came to the door, and saw you and freaked out and started running, and he dropped his bag, and you said, "I thought you were going to bring me wine coolers. Where's my wine coolers?"
Yeah, I didn't have a catchy name like To Catch a Predator like Chris did. He did a much better job of branding. I'd like to go back and find out what we called that story, because we did that sting about 6 times
Creep of
here
the
in
Week.
Metro Detroit. No, something computer, some boring title or something. I can't remember what it was, but and I actually got that
Computer whackers.
from a former producer that I worked with was in Kansas City, and they were working on that. And they called and said, "Hey, you got to get with these guys from Perverted Justice. You should try this. This is crazy." So we set it up. We were successful right away.
Oh, yeah.
We had all kinds of guys come to the door, and we asked them to bring things like wine coolers and whatever, candy bars and whatever, and they'd show up with their bag of stuff ready to meet a 13-year-old girl or a 13-year-old boy, whatever the case. And anyway, so yeah, we did have a couple of long runs and a couple guys peeling out in their cars, and that was always fun, the chase.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'd done the story several times, and it kind of just wore itself out. We were telling the same story over and over again after 5-6 times. And so I had called Chris Hansen, who's a close friend of mine, and I said, "Chris, you got to do this thing, man. It's unbelievable. It's like watching a car accident or something. It's not all right, but you can't take your eyes off it, because you feel kind of bad for the people who show up. They're just, they're not all
pathetic losers.
Well, some are some
I
maybe
feel that bad for them.
not that bad, but some may be predators, but they're confused for sure. There's something wrong there.
Damaged.
But anyway, he was like, "There's no way the network would ever do something sleazy like that. That's local TV." And then like 2 years later, he must have been at a pitch meeting and didn't have anything to pitch, and he pitched it, and they gave it a try. And on their first try, they caught like 13 people, including like a priest,
It's a home run,
cop, and whatever. And it went on. I mean, unbelievable.
I mean, not only was it good
story,
good television, but it became a cultural thing.
Oh, unbelievable! He's been on South Park.
Yeah,
He's
that's
on
right.
like
Oh, boy.
Letterman.
Emmys. He did an Emmy skit with Conan O'Brien.
Yeah,
It was
right.
actually really funny.
Conebone 69.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that was Conan's handle.
Did you get a commission out of that? A finder's fee? A Mercedes?
I think he wrote a book about it, and in the book he mentioned.
There's an
that,
acknowledgement.
Yeah, I don't think I got it. I don't think I got named. I think it was a reporter from Detroit or something like that.
Oh,
Wow,
Chris and I have been friends. We were in each other's weddings. We've known each other.
Are you
since high
have you
school.
talked to him recently? Because I know he went
I
through
talk to him
some.
all the time.
How's he doing? Because he
doing great.
went through a bunch of stuff. And
He's doing great.
rebuilding.
He's remarried and
He is,
he's
okay.
happy. He's got a YouTube show that has 750,000 followers. I mean, he's killing it on YouTube. He does that cameo, which is pretty
I
funny.
know, believe me.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean that's a big business. You wouldn't believe the money he brings in from that. I mean,
Really?
it's really big money. And then he produces his own 10-part series shows like that are similar to Dateline. It'd be like,
Yeah.
I think he's doing one now, Murders of Michigan, the most famous dozen murders, and each week it's a new episode. And he sells those to Discovery ID, and they do really well. He did Killer Instinct with Chris Hansen, I think it was called, or some show like that. But he's done 4 different series like that now, and he's works for himself, and he sets his own schedule, and he's making money, and he's doing great.
Because there was that time there was like a little worried about him. And
Well,
what was gonna happen,
a lot
but
of stuff just collided at the same time. You know, he lost his job, got divorced. It's just, hey, it's a
And
long
of course-
life.
And of course, because he's Chris Hansen, To Catch a Predator,
Right.
it's
Got a lot of
plastered
attention, yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, when he brought that bag of wine coolers, that was a problem.
He's doing great.
bad.
Chris is doing great.
Good.
Before we get to some of Kevin's stories, I want to tell you a little bit about somebody else who's doing terrific, and they've been doing it for 75 years. That's Roy O'Brien Ford in St. Clair Shores at the corner of 9 Mile and Mac. That's where my mom got her red Ford Focus wagon, which she's always bragging about, mainly because we borrowed because our car sucks. But hers is great. So if you want to get a new ride, maybe sell your ride, check out a lease. They have new cars. They have used cars. They have lots of opportunities. They do repairs. They'll sell you tires. They'll do service. Go to royobrien.com. That's ROYOBRIEN.com. When you're there, you can check out Fast Track, which lets you choose your vehicle and options. You can pick your deal, whether you want to lease, finance, or pay cash. Get the value of your trade-in, apply for financing, and schedule delivery of that hot new ride. If you go in person, where you're going to see a beautiful showroom, you're going to see some great cars on the lot, and maybe you can sell them yours because used cars are going big time. So to learn more, go to royobrien.com. That's ROYOBRIEN.com, or call 888-566-5851 and tell them you found out about them from ML Soul of Detroit. Kevin, so back to you. We Anson, doing great. Glad to hear it. Now, what about you? What do you want to talk about stories? You want to talk about what you're doing now? What's
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, update us.
Show.
The last we knew, you were doing with WADL.
Yep.
News Now, is that what it was called?
Yep, News Now. That was fun. It was a half-hour show. It was on 5 days a week. And,
I liked it.
It was very, very low budget, but
Yeah.
basically I'd call
Kind of
up,
why I liked it.
I'd call up people and have them come in, and we'd talk about whatever's going on in the day, or talk about whatever they've been doing. And I really enjoyed it. We stopped because of COVID. We couldn't have in-studio shows anymore, and so we weren't going to do them remotely. And so we put a pause on it, and we haven't come back to it yet. I don't think we will come back to it.
Do you miss television in general?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. I've been at JR for almost 2 years now. I fill in for Mitch and Guy Gordon every once in a while in that early morning shift, which is tough. For
Paul W.
But I have so much more fun in that format, or in like this format we're in right now. The whole problem with TV is it's just so short. You're doing a 5-minute story, a 3-minute story. I mean, I used to get to do 10 and 11-minute stories. You used to do longer stories than that.
We
You
could
were
go up to
great.
9 minutes if we had.
But man, they were, the consultants wanted them down to 2.5 minutes, and you're working for 2.5 weeks on a story that's 2.5 minutes, and it's just like, it takes longer to
Well, they didn't even
put makeup on for the camera than it does to tell
seems
this
like
important
they're not
investigation.
even doing any investigations anymore. They're just all the stations seem to have been gutted.
It's tough. They have so many hours of TV. There's like 7 hours of local news on every day, maybe more than that now, and they're filling it with the same amount of people. So they just can't take somebody and say, go work on something for 2.5 weeks and spend 10 minutes, doing a story. I wish they would.
Yeah.
I wish they would. But the papers have figured it out. The free press has figured out how to work around that problem. They're covering daily, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like they're covering daily news with maybe even interns or a reporter will cover a bunch of stuff. They'll go get the press releases, bring them back, and write the stories. But then the reporters will dig into an issue and really tell you something. I mean, that's worth buying a newspaper for. Just getting barrage of a 45-second headline, and the news reporters on TV
you can get that anywhere,
are
too.
doing 2-3 stories a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to get in depth when you're doing 2-3 stories a day. So hey, they're a business, so they're making money. It's working for them. People maybe want just a small dose of what happened. I don't know what people want, obviously. but it was a blast doing it. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. 25 years working in local TV was in the town you grew up in was just a blast.
Well, and to make it that long, obviously my tenure was very short. TV tends to chew them up and spit them out. So, I mean, the fact that you have that tenure, that relationship with viewers, do you get to a point where people sort of, recognize the name and so they have expectations? Let's talk about some of those stories that you look back on and say, this is when I felt like I was doing what I was meant to do, as opposed to I got 2.5 minutes to try and explain to people how to create cold fusion.
Well, all right. First, I want to go back to when I first started in TV to start, okay? And that's partially because I have 3 kids, and they all have just exited college or are my baby's graduating in a couple months. And so as I watch them launch into the world, it reminds me of back when we kind of launched into the world. It's kind of a different time than it was back then. Back then, it was like, okay, you're done, go, okay, get out there, and you kind of had to be fearless. And so I remember when I graduated from college, I went to Western Michigan, and I immediately took the LSAT to go to law school. That was my backup plan. I did not want to go to law school at all, but I have 6 brothers and sisters. They're doctors and lawyers, everybody, and I didn't want any of that. Yeah. That's all that success is ridiculous.
Yeah. Who wants a lake house?
Right. It's crazy talk.
Yeah, you'll never get up there, and the maintenance, and you got to take the boat out of the water and put the boat back in the water.
Exactly. So I had to deal with my parents that I'd either find a job in TV or I would go to law school. And again, at the time, I knew Chris Hansen. He was in TV. My dad was friends with Bill Bonds. I had seen him in TV. So I had this long history of what television news looked like through Bill Bonds and Chris Hansen. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I forgot while I was at college to prepare for a career in this. And it struck me that I didn't have a lot of experience. I was a sports director at Western, and I did play-by-play for girls volleyball and girls basketball, which could be a whole podcast. That was a great time, but didn't really prepare me for TV news necessarily. And so when I got out, I went to Chris Hansen and asked if I could shadow him for a couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
He let me shadow him at Channel 7, and that was when by chance, that was when they did the money, money, money clip. We're so rich we throw out our dollars. It was the YBI gang, drug gang. Very famous clip in local media history. Yes, right. And they were so rich they're throwing the money away, and it was a crazy time. But anyway, and the garbage strike was going on back then, which people who are old remember, and so. With that information, I did these stand-ups, and it was so funny because I wore like this big red puffy coat, winter coat, and I'm just standing there. I'm like, I'm Kevin Dietz, and there was a big drug raid here on Chalmers Street today, and it was pretty bad. And so when I sent out my tape to like 200 stations, I got 200 rejection letters and no job, and the clock was ticking. The law school was nearing every week, and
time to go to Alpena.
So I jumped in my car. I got a box of tapes. I jumped in my car, and I drove to every TV station in Michigan, and I went right up. I was going to go all the way to Marquette, wherever I had to go. And I ended up stopping in Traverse City, where I was offered a part-time, I think it was 15 hours a week at TV 7 and 4. But I wasn't going to get to work in Traverse City. I had to work in Sheboygan, which was their other bureau, where nobody worked. There's nobody there, just me.
Yeah.
And there's this building there. But I think the reason they hired me was because they were spending money to send an engineer up there to flip the switch when the weather was bad. And it was cheaper to just hire
have
me
you do it,
to
yeah.
flip the switch. And if I did a story, that'd be fine too.
Yeah, don't tell IATSE.
Yeah, right. Well, I was in the union.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
So were you-
brother?
International Electric.
IBEW, is that it?
So what kind of stories were you doing?
So it was funny. So I was
W74.
I had a camera and a car, and I took whatever I shot to the bus station and put it on the bus, and the bus took it down to Traverse City, and so I really had no supervision at all.
Did you like that, or were you a little freaked out at that age? Like,
Well, it was
I'm
good for
gonna
me
mess
because I was
up.
making so many mistakes
Yeah.
that I could fix my mistakes.
See, I would love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
do
so
whatever
that
you
was
want.
great, you know. So, so they would suggest, like in the morning meeting, they'd say, "Oh, they're fixing up a church in Gaylord or something. Why don't you swing by and get that?" And I go, "Okay." So I would do that, and then I would call like each sheriff's department. There's so much land up there. I mean, it's huge. And some sheriff's person would answer the phone and say, "Oh, there's a domestic violence situation," you know, and boom, I drove like 2 hours over the Mackinac Bridge, another hour east, got out, did the story, because I'm just thinking Detroit. I'm like, how do I get a tape to get back to Detroit? And so then I'd drive back, and then I'd tell them what I had, and they'd say, "Oh, that's really great. Can we get that for tonight's news?" Now, from Sheboygan to Traverse City is another 2.5, 3 hours. So I'd drive down there, and then I'd jump in an edit booth where I didn't know how to edit, so I'd be editing. I'd miss the 5 o'clock deadline, miss the 6 o'clock deadline. I'd finally at 11 o'clock, I'd get my tape in there. There'd be a black hole or two in it, but it would get on, and then I'd say, "Wow, that was great." And then I'd drive back to
That's
Sheboygan
cool, though.
and do it again the next day. It was fun. I worked like, I don't know, 100 hours a week or something doing these stories. And eventually they just felt so bad after a few months. They made me full time. And then they brought me down to Traverse City, which was awesome.
How long were you at Channel 4 then? Like, when did you end up? How'd you get there?
So I went from Traverse City. I went from Sheboygan to Traverse City with the same company, and then I wanted to go to Grand Rapids because that's where people from Detroit were getting hired. And so I said, if I can get in there, I can get to Detroit. But I couldn't get in there. I just wasn't. I was too green. My stuff wasn't good enough. And so I got a job in Lansing. So I went to Lansing, and I was kind of the oldest guy there, and I took a pay cut from like $25,000 a year to 17. Well, their max pay was 15, and I said, "Come on." The guy goes, "All right, we'll give you 17, but no raises the whole time you're here. We're on a freeze." So I went to Lansing, took that job, and I worked there for, I think, 11 months, and then I got into Grand Rapids. Similar story to up north. They said, "Yeah, you're hired in Grand Rapids." And then when I got there, they said, "But we're going to put you in the Battle Creek Bureau." I'm like a bureau guy, I guess. You know? So they moved me over to the Battle Creek Bureau, and our stories ran on Channel 8 in Grand Rapids, but then we did a whole half-hour show or something in Battle Creek that was separate. So anyway, that was fine. I was only there 11 months, and then I got to Detroit. And I got to Detroit because of Chris Hansen. He got his job at NBC Now, which was a Tom Brokaw show that eventually became Dateline. And Chris had said, he told the news director, he goes, I'm going to New York. I have all these contacts. And if you guys remember Chris in Detroit, he was really well connected. And he said...
He was considered a newspaper reporter for TV, where he just really worked sources and just told stories as opposed to, amazing video or anything like that.
Yeah, it was all information, and it was all good information. It was all exclusive. And basically, he told the news director he was giving me the pager, and I could work the pager out of Battle Creek, or they could hire me in and go there. And I was up against somebody that Ann Thompson had recommended. And I remember they ended up hiring me after like 7 interviews. I mean, I went to every single person. They like had a vote, and there's like 3 thumbs down, 2 thumbs up. And then they went to the general manager, and I had an interview with Alan Frank, and he was like, "Well, what, how are you going to make a difference?" And I just remember I said, "Well, Coleman Young's about to die. And when Coleman Young dies, there's going to be a new mayor. That means there's going to be a new mayor, a new police chief. Everyone in town is going to be new. I'm new in town. I'm going to go get those guys while everyone else is chasing those guys, and I'll be ready." And they ended up hiring me, and it was. I mean,
and there was naked golf.
It was amazing. And then there was naked golf.
That's so different than the hiring process with me, where they hired me, and then Neil told everybody I hired this idiot, and people like Hank said, "What are we supposed to do with this crap?" And then he started booking vacations in New York, and then I was like, "Okay."
Did somebody ask you how you got hired? No, I'm just curious.
This is part of my Jedi mind trick to get Sean to participate. I know if I say something, you're immediately going to jump on it. So this is This is really, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Windsor.
So when you were in your big puffy red coat before you did all that, and you said it was like a crack.
It was.
Were you scared at all, or is it one of those things where you don't know what you don't know?
No, I was more fascinated than scared. I was young and dumb, and so you don't know enough to be scared.
Have you ever had one of those stories where you had to deal with someone that was a little frightening, or like a door knocker?
KKK, right?
Yeah, when I joined, it was actually not the KKK. It was the National Socialist Movement, NSM, I believe it was. Yeah. But we went undercover, Mike, and not this Mike, but our producer Mike. We went undercover and joined a Michigan hate group, and so to not be recognized, we went up to Cadillac, Michigan, where they were having a hate picnic, I guess it was called.
What year was this? Was this
this was probably 15 years ago. I'd say. So
it was right before I came to Channel 4. I came in 2006. You guys were just doing that series. It was
cool.
What did they serve at this picnic?
So it was interesting. So I grew this beard and bought some stuff
German vanilla cake,
crackers.
We were undercover, and so we went up there. We didn't know what to expect.
No, crackers. Who got served?
No, they had like a pie eating contest at this thing, and they had all these little kids running around like blowing bubbles. It looked like any other kind of community picnic you might go to, but in the background they're playing these songs with like a beat like the Barney song or something but it's just like I hate you, I hate everybody. It was just and then they were selling some items to raise money because they wanted to go to the national NSM convention down in Kentucky. And so we got in, we signed up, we hung out, we got invited to the national show, the national thing down in Kentucky. And Mike went down and he got hidden cameras in and he filmed this entire thing. And in the meantime, we'd gotten all the license plates of everybody who attended. We figured out the organizational chart of Michigan and what was going on. And then Mike went and got this amazing video. I could not believe it. But they had these huge mosh pits of people in these hate music bands. They're trying to recruit people through music on the internet then, give out music at concerts. Yeah,
like David Koresh and the Branch Davidians.
But they had cross burnings and swastika burnings and all this crazy stuff. And he brought all this stuff back and we went through it. And so anyway, through the series of the reports, we exposed everybody from Michigan that was in it. And I remember we went up to who the leader at the time was because someone had left and I think they got arrested or something. So someone we knew was taking over. He was up in the Petoskey area. And we went to confront him and he wasn't home. And he had a little rock garden where all the rocks were in formations of swastikas on the front lawn. And we're like, how
charming.
This is fairly scary, I don't know. And so then all of a sudden we see his car go by, so we follow him. And it turns out he's a pizza delivery guy. Oh. And so we confront him and
clearly superior to all other beings.
And this hilarious confrontation because for some reason I'm kind of scared. It looks like we're doing rope-a-dope in a boxing match or something. I'm just kind of like lead it back and then lead it in and then lead it back. And we had done that, but the scary part, which was your question 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, Sean, where are you?
I was just saying, I'm used to it.
Was that
tried to beat up Kevin?
He's the guest.
Yeah. Was that when we aired that, they put out a national message. They said this reporter thinks it's funny to go undercover and expose NSM members. If you'd like to send him a message, here's where he lives, here's where his kids go to school, here's where his parents live.
Doxed you, yeah.
Yeah, and so they put everything out there, and then my phone started ringing like crazy in the middle of the night. The family was terrified. But we got the FBI on it. I lived in Troy at the time. Troy police were on it. The FBI tracked the phone calls. They arrested people. They charged people.
Wow.
Yeah, they got on it. They took care of it. And so it was a little scary at that point, especially the kids. They had police cars at their school and stuff like that. And it's like, wait a minute, what? I just go cover the weather. I'll go stand on the side of the road, tell people to wear hats. It's wintertime. Put on your gloves and hats.
Yeah, I can cover girls volleyball and basketball.
Exactly. There's stuff like that. And of course, anytime you're chasing down we did so many stories on different drug gangs and things. You can't be careful enough on those stories. Even people who are just doing breaking news. I don't understand why they stand in front of these people's houses and don't go to a police precinct. One night we were doing a shoot. A little kid was shot. They were 4 years old on their doorstep. And it was a drive-by shooting, so we were out there covering it. And it turned out that it was a hit on a drug dealer, but they got the wrong house.
Of course.
And so we're all standing there. All the media's there, 247, Free News, everybody. And we're doing our reports or whatever. And while we're there, literally live trucks, everybody's doing the reports. A car comes flying down the street and firebombs the correct address, which is just the other side of the street, across the street.
What?
And by this time, police were gone. Police were there when they were there, and then they
Yeah.
would go away, and the media would hang out until the live shot or try and talk to neighbors or whatever they do. And all of a sudden, the house across the street just explodes in flames. You're like, what are we doing? I mean,
Did anybody shoot the drive-by? I mean, did any video of the drive-by?
Oh, yeah. Well, the aftermath for sure, yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
did anybody get the car coming by? I mean, you wouldn't know it at the time.
Yeah, I
but
don't think
wonder-
so. No, I think
that
everyone
plate
was,
number.
I think everyone was hitting the deck, Wow. But yeah, I don't remember if they caught the person or how they resolved that. But it was big because every time a child gets shot, it's a big story.
Oh, yeah.
And so everybody was there. I mean, but yeah, it was crazy.
It's amazing how reporters are sent into dangerous situations. If you're a newspaper reporter, you can kind of blend into the crowd a little bit because you got your notebook and you either pull it out or you put it in your back pocket. But when you're a TV reporter, you're with a massive truck that has a big number on the side of it. And one time we were driving by, and it's rare that you're near another crew, but we were driving by something where Silva Harapetian was covering something where someone had just been raped or accused somebody in the neighborhood of rape, and so half the neighborhood was going after the guy and the other half was coming back to say no, somebody didn't do it. And it was a really tense situation. They were set up, and we kind of drove by and we're like, hey, are you guys okay? And they're like, I think we're going to be okay. And like, you guys go ahead. And this is at noon. This is for like a noon shot. And, it didn't really occur to anybody, yeah, this neighborhood's about to boil over. Let's not send somebody over there. It's like, no, we're going to send somebody because that's going to be great video and
Right.
lively live shot, right? Something going on in the background.
Somebody back in their office thought it was a great idea, that it was going to be great television. It
was not out
Someone
there,
at Chelsea, I think it was John Carlson, but I could be wrong. No, it wasn't John Carlson. I think it was his replacement. But somebody got shot at through the door just a couple of years ago.
I think it was John Carl. Yeah, he was on the porch and somebody.
Some older man was confused and
Yeah.
just shot first, asked questions later.
And as I understand it, a newspaper reporter had been on the porch earlier and had said, this guy's unhinged, I wouldn't go up there. It's like, well, I got this. It's like, oh, yeah. And he was new to town, so it was like, welcome to Detroit. I think he came from North Carolina or something.
Right.
So it's like, welcome, friend.
That's crazy. But anyway, so let me drop one last story on you, and that is and I go back to my early days because it just shows how dumb you could be and how lucky you can be. But this was Operation Desert Storm. I was in my first year up in Traverse City, and I convinced management that we should go over and cover northern Michigan effort in the war. And they're like, all right, but how are you going to do that? Everybody was trying to get over. You remember that was like the war that was made for TV,
Right.
And
Everyone was
Stud
embedded.
Scuds.
I think that was the first time.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And so people were flying over on military planes. And I didn't really have a lot of connections as a 22-year-old kid in Traverse City. So I didn't think much about it. I went and got the visa that I needed. I went to Chicago, and then they sent me to Washington, D.C., and I got the visa for me and the anchorman, Jerry Green, at the time. And so we were going to go, and so I just booked a plane, like first class a plane on British Airways over to Saudi Arabia. And I'm like, well, hey, I got my visa. We'll just go. Everything should be fine. And nobody seemed to have any second thoughts about it. And so we went, and of course we landed, and the whole plane is surrounded by armed military, and we're like, ooh, this is different looking. And we get off the plane, and we get in the line, and they're like, your visas are to be with the military. You're these are no good. You're
great.
Your
Now
visa
what?
only says that you can come with a military escort, and I'm like, and there's a language barrier, and the anchorman behind me is just like, I didn't want to come in the first place.
I'm an Eagle Scout. Does that count?
And so I just started saying NBC. The Traverse City station was NBC. Like NBC, and they're like, you can't come in. You don't have the right visa. I'm like, NBC. And then some guy just appeared, and he took us. He goes this way, and we go, this off to the left or something, and through some gate and into a van, and they drive us over to the hotel where NBC is, where that Scud Stud guy was, something Kent or whatever his name was.
Arthur Kent.
Yeah. And they take us right to a room, like and they knock on the door. This guy opens up, and they got all this editing equipment in the hotel room. And the guy goes, NBC, and he pushes us in, and he goes, don't leave this hotel. If you leave this hotel, you'll be arrested. You're not properly credentialed. And so these guys are like, what's your deal? Like, well, I go, we got a room because I booked a room at some hotel. Like, they go, you can't go there. You can't leave this hotel. Like, you have to be with the military anywhere you go.
Yeah.
You're going to get arrested. Now I'm like, we're over there. The station sent their money. I'm certain I'm going to get fired when this all blows up. And so I tell Jerry to just rest up, take a nap, and I go down in the lobby and I'm like trying to interview soldiers on the payphone. Anybody, just anyone. I'm trying to figure out how to salvage this thing. I'm supposed to do like an hour show when I get back and 10-part series or something. And we're basically doomed, and we're not talking to anybody back home. We're just, and there's no live shots or anything. We're just gathering.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying anything I can think of. And then the next day, Dan Quayle shows up. And he had misspelled potato.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Remember that very
And so
well,
they were
yeah.
trying to make him more serious. So they sent him over to Saudi Arabia. And he, everyone in the media, went to the Quayle thing. Like, it was the biggest story in the world at the time. So I was down in the lobby of the hotel, and the ladies at the guest table said, well, do you want to go to something else, because we have military guided things. I said, sure, what do you got? And they had a 3-day ride along to the front lines.
Oh, wow.
And
Perfect.
so I said, Jerry, get your stuff. We're heading
Jerry probably was not excited now.
I don't know if he was or not, but he was going. I knew that. And the NBC guys were like, we're wearing like golf shirts. I'm thinking we're at the desert. I'm so dumb. And it's like 30 degrees at night.
22.
Yeah. So they go, here, take our coats, and blah, blah. So we go out, and it happens to be, it's New Year's Eve. So we're out there, and we're interviewing all these soldiers from all over. We couldn't find anyone. We just walked around. Anyone from Michigan? Anyone from Michigan? We're just screaming, anyone from Michigan? We couldn't find anyone from Michigan. So we're just interviewing everyone else, and they're doing these New Year's Eve wishes, back to their families and whatever. And then finally we found this one guy, I can't remember what his name was, but he was from northern Michigan. And my gosh, we shot him tying his boots. We shot him going for a walk. The war hadn't started yet, so they weren't doing anything. Yeah. But oh my gosh, we shot so much of this stuff. And I just told the anchorman, I said, when we get back, we'll find this kid's family. We'll do a whole hour special on this kid. And then the troops, on New Year's Eve, they all got together and did like a, Happy New Year from our family to you or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, go Northern Michigan.
Perfect.
We got a shout out. And so we get back to the hotel. Obviously, we're thrilled, and we're bragging to the NBC guys. They took all of our footage, aired it on the Today Show the next day with this correspondent who made it just, I don't know if he's in New York or what, but it looked like he was out there with the troops on New Year's Eve.
He's got the field jacket on and the camo. And
then aired all our stuff. I'm like, oh, well, at least they're harboring us for a few days. So
And they gave you their jackets.
Yeah, they gave us the jackets.
Yes,
It was fair. It was a fair deal. But anyway, we got back, and we did our hour special. We had found stories. And
Bosses never knew.
Bosses never knew. Probably still don't. But it's just amazing though that you when you're young, you just think you can do anything. We can do that. We'll just figure it out. We'll just work it out. But man,
I wish more reporters today, because there's a lot of young reporters out there, would do stuff like that. Take some chances.
Who paid for the ticket? The British Airways first class ticket.
The sales department sold the crap out of that event. The show was sold out, so they made money on the. They always make money.
No, but I mean, did you buy it yourself?
No, the station
No,
did.
station did.
Oh, I didn't know if you bought it and then they reimbursed
to get
you.
reimbursed. No, that would have been. No, I would never have. 17. Did
'Cause
you
I
miss
was
the?
thinking that
Did
was-
you miss the part about 17,000?
No, I thought maybe you sold whatever you had to get on that plane.
No, that wasn't quite that brave.
The $250 credit limit on the Discover card would not have gotten you to.
It's so funny, and I just wanted to get to Detroit so bad. I'd do anything. I lived on the streets of Traverse City as a homeless person, and I found out that there are no homeless people in Traverse City.
It's not the right
and so
place.
people so as soon as I was out there, people are like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Can you come to my home and let's come live with us? Like here's $1,000. What do you need? What is going on here? And so but ultimately through being out there, we found out the city had no homeless soup centers. They weren't ready for it, which was fine because there weren't really any homeless people. But we found out that
John Engler comes along.
Well, we found out there's a lot of people living in their cars. There's a lot of people close to homeless. There's a lot of people in need. So we focused on the poor and the needs and the lack of services for the city. They ended up doing some good things up there in Traverse City because of it. But I was seriously trying to figure out what would a news director in Detroit hire me for doing.
That's good though.
That's so resourceful.
It's just great. I mean, it was fun and I don't know. You just didn't care, I guess.
What else do you have written down for along the? I'm going back to it again. Along the naked golf.
The gotcha
of course
stories?
you are.
Yeah, well, those are good. I just remember.
He's like, screw the real stories. He likes
Right,
to-
exactly.
I like them both.
We're not going to do anything on those local impact stories, but no, my gotcha. I wasn't the biggest gotcha guy. We talked about the National Socialist Movement I have on here.
Yeah.
We talked about perverted justice, which I have on here. I did do one of those judge stories. Everyone had their judge story.
Oh yeah, Judge Tyner.
I did Judge Tyner.
I remember seeing her on the treadmill.
They called her Judge Tylenol, and because she was a pain she was a headache because she was always late for work, and so the police and would have to wait for her to come to work. So we put a tail on her and we followed her around. She was shopping at Somerset. She was at the gym on the treadmill, and of course, the hidden camera. Those are fun stories to watch. I mean, they really are. But
ML loves doing. You love doing stakeouts.
oh my gosh! But so anyway,
That cost her a spot on
that
the
was
Court
the
of
craziest
Appeals.
thing.
That was a big story.
I had no idea, but so when I went to confront her, I'm following her, and she went to this restaurant on Telegraph Road, and it was a job interview for the Court of Appeals, and she comes out with this guy who I don't know, and I don't care who he is because I'm just focused on confronting her. I start confronting her, and she's like, "Is this like a put on? Is this a joke? Is this it's no joke?" Blah blah. Yeah, I'm doing my whole thing, my rehearsed confrontation.
Well, you have to have the good line, right?
Right, you got to practice that in the mirror, but unfortunately for
You're
her,
out of order.
unfortunately for her, she was on a job interview for the Court of Appeals job, and then she
Not
didn't.
your fault.
She didn't get it. Obviously, I ran into the judge who did one day, but she had no comment on the investigation.
Well, and as I recall, her interest in justice was so negligent that when she didn't get the Court of Appeals job, she ended up not running for re-election
she
to the
retired.
circuit. She just basically said, "Yeah, this feels too much like work. Now I'm out of here."
I think they were fairly wealthy in their family, and
Well, I think somebody in her family was a major contributor to a governor, and that's how she got the
appointment.
the leg up. And
Well, once again,
so
not
that
your
happens.
fault. I mean, she's
Right.
the
Oh
one-
yeah. Hey, just go to
Look in the mirror.
Right,
yeah.
go to work. No, it's always your fault. Ask Kwame. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Then the ML had mentioned the Dr. P abortion story, which was another
Great
crazy thing. I just in my head, like the hate group. When I was a young kid, it was a story that I always thought I wanted to find out who these people are. Are these people just complete idiots, or are they organized, or how do these people end up in this place? But so this abortion story, I had always thought or been fascinated about this whole idea of back alley abortions and do they really happen, and what happens when you're poor and you can't go get an abortion. And so
Do they?
we had
That's
gotten
a
a
good
tip.
question. Yeah.
Well, we had gotten a tip on this guy, and we started following him, and it turned out that he had the equipment he needed, and he would go into abandoned buildings in Detroit,
Yes.
and word of mouth would get around to where he was, and he was charging I want to say he was trying to charge $100 or something, but he would take food stamp cards. He was a gambler. So after we'd follow him to the casino after whatever work, and he would go and gamble his money away. But he was taking like anything, and sadly there'd be 15, 20 girls lined up wherever he was set up for the day, and he had no nurses. He had no, just the cleanliness.
Not very sterile.
And no backup plan if something went wrong. And we sent in some people with hidden cameras and got it all on tape. He was arrested and deported. Ultimately.
Good. Yeah, and this was not a pro-choice, anti-abortion story. It was strictly about the health of the patients. And if you saw this story, you'll never forget it. These were disgusting conditions. And when Kevin says they were doing it in abandoned buildings, I mean, it looked like this was in either someplace in Syria that had just been blown up, or a garage where, for all you know, a rat's going to come running across the patient's feet as they're in the stirrups. I mean, it's pretty horrible conditions. That was a great story.
You're also very well known because you did a big podcast series on White Boy Rick Wershey. Have you followed that since he's been released? Have you had any contact with Rick?
I haven't talked to Rick, but I do follow him on social media, and it seems like every day I run into someone who ran into Rick. And he is doing a lot right now in the injustice for prisoner arena. He's doing speaking events, and he's out and about like every day. I do know that he's been doing some like autograph signing things, I think, to make some money or whatever. I know
he did artwork.
I don't know what his financial situation is. He's engaged to a great girl. She runs a car dealership, and
I'm glad you said
he's real happy
car dealership, because dealing was what got it
yes.
in trouble. It's
Did that movie help us profile a little bit? Or re-energize the platform, so to speak?
I think so. And he calls himself White Boy Rick now, and
he
probably
does,
because
of the notoriety. Now the notoriety's good.
You can't get rid of it anyway. I don't think. I think it's there, so why not own it?
Yeah.
Why not use it? He hated that so much. I mean, it was such a. You guys had him on all the time, and he really wanted to be Rick Wershey, and that White Boy Rick was dead. He was somebody who existed when he was 16 years old, and what a horrible thing that happened to him.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous,
just brutal.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I spent about 5 years on that story, and it was great to see him get paroled in Michigan, which was fantastic. And then, he went down to Florida, and they made him do every day of the 2 years for that part of it, the car theft ring deal. But everyone who's seen him said he's just doing great. He's happy, and he's doing what he said he was going to do when he got out. He's going to try and make a difference for people who are still in prison.
Good.
Give us a couple of the favorite public impact stories.
Well, for me, I thought the Floyd Dent, William Melendez story was a big deal.
RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop pulled over a man in Inkster and beat the crap out of him, and may have planted drugs in his car. That I'd gotten a tip about that story, and then I found out that the court had a video of what happened, but they had it under seal, so it wasn't public. So I said, if I can find this I didn't really believe the story, I guess. I just thought, really, this guy, just pulled him over, beat the crap out of him for no reason, and planted drugs on him. Like, what's the motive? He doesn't know him, It just, I don't know. It didn't really add up, but I said, well, let's see what the video. Well, the video shows up, and it's like, oh my gosh! I mean, he pulls him out of the car instantly in 2 seconds, punches him 16 times in the head. He's a bloody mess, and then he's walking around the car for half an hour, and then he pulls something out of his pocket. I don't know what it was, but something. And then all of a sudden, there's a hit with the dog, and they find drugs. And this guy, Floyd Dent, who I've interviewed numerous times, is a wonderful guy. He was going to prison for like 5 years. He was going to prison for assaulting a police officer and narcotics violations. And, after doing the story and doing all the stuff that we did and all the other reporters did on that story, it turns out William Melendez, loses his badge. He goes to jail for a year. Floyd Dent.
And the big thing that came out of that was, didn't he do that in another agency, and then he got moved around? Like, I remember that being part of the story.
He wasn't fired anywhere, but
Yeah.
there were federal lawsuits that said he had done the same kind of thing several times, and he moved to all these little departments where they don't do background checks, right?
Yeah, and he had been part of this Detroit police crew in Southwest Detroit that was accused of shaking down drug dealers. They were actually tried federally and acquitted. And he had moved on from there to some of these other departments until he ended up at Inkster. Another story you did that I thought was tremendous was the young man who died in jail in Macomb County. And,
David Stojewski,
yeah, and I see his mother every time I go to Costco, and she loves you to death, and you brought a measure of peace to somebody who had suffered because I think her son was a handful before he was arrested, and then of course. Then he dies in police in jail custody.
So that ended up being a story that I think is important because I learned something that I didn't know, and I think police learned something that they didn't know. This guy, he had a drug problem. He was in jail a lot. The officers didn't care for him much. He would, he was the kind of guy who would throw feces at the window when you walked by. He was not a great prisoner.
He was not the guy in the Green Mile.
Yeah, he was not a great guy, but he was picked up for not paying a traffic ticket or something. He owed $100 or something, $150 on some traffic ticket. So they took him to jail, and then they ignored him. Well, the problem with David Stojewski was he was addicted to opiates. And they didn't really know it. And at the time, they know a lot more now than they did then. But they didn't really know the impact of the withdrawal system from opiates. So they were just looking at him as a pain-in-the-butt prisoner, and they just left him there for 14 days. He lost, I don't want to get the numbers wrong, but 45 or 65 pounds in 14 or 19 days or something. And he literally died right in front of them on camera because he was in a cell where somebody has to watch the monitors. And he literally went to his last breath. And
from withdrawal? Is that what?
Yeah, it was basically from withdrawal. And as sad as that is, and as a reporter, I kind of went after the sheriff's department. Like, why are your deputies not helping this person? This guy is clearly in need. He's naked, alone. You can just see him gasping for air until the point where he dies. And yeah, they should have done something. But what they were saying, and I didn't fully comprehend it, was that they're saying it's the medical person's call. There's medical people there. The medical people said he's fine. So they didn't believe he was in pain. They thought he was faking. And the medical person said, no, he's fine. And so they didn't help him. And now they don't do it that way. They now know more about what withdrawal from opiates looks like, and they have a system where if they go in. They go in. They don't assume somebody's faking anymore. They assume somebody's injured, and they spend more money. And it's expensive to send someone who's faking to the hospital and get checked out and come back. And prisoners like to do that. It's like a little field trip for them to get out of jail for a little bit. So it's more complicated than it might just appear. Like here's this video of this horrible thing that happened.
That jail had other.
Absolutely,
similar cases.
Absolutely, but it was just. But looking back now, I think that a lot of times when we look at these stories, really we should bring in a lot of people to say what's really wrong. Like how do you fix some of these systemic problems? Instead of just
that doesn't happen though, because now it's on to the next story.
It can be, but I think in Macomb County, and I should go back and check, but I believe they now they have a new intake center where when you get arrested, you come in and they assess you like, what is your problem? Are you violent? Are you addicted to drugs? Are you do you have a mental health issue? I mean, 35% of all inmates have mental health issues. They now
that feels low to me.
It might be 45. Yeah, they'll now go to a jail where they have medical staff who's familiar with those mental health issues. So it can change. It's not easy, but it can, or it can at least get better.
Yeah, and that was a great story. And while it may be expensive now to take those extra measures, based on the little bit I've heard, what they're going to pay in a lawsuit settlement because of what happened, the expense is worth it. You pay now and save lives, you pay on the back end, and everybody's shattered.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see them pay really on the front end and actually help people who have mental health issues rather than arrest them and throw them in jail. They could do a lot in that regard of helping people on the front end.
Yeah, thanks, Governor Engler.
Or addictions.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
Right.
Any last one, Kevin, before we do a little commerce, a little shameless commerce?
Were you around for Nancy Kerrigan? Did you get to cover that? The Why Me?
Although I was in Boston when she got married.
Were you?
We were
Tanya or Nancy?
Nancy. We were in the back bay, and we see this big ruckus at one of the big churches in Boston, maybe in Trinity. I'm not sure. We're like, what the hell's going on over there? It looks like some sort of coronation. Like Nancy Kerrigan's marrying her agent. We're like, okay, well, we're going to go to Daisy Buchanan's, have a beer. And I think we're going to go to Tower Records and Newberry Comics or something. It's like, hey, Nancy Kerrigan, you look like Skeletor.
Was that the biggest local story, though, that you worked on, 94?
I don't know if it was the biggest. It's just the first really big one.
Yeah.
And I'd come to town. I told you I was trying to win over the new administration. And, we had a new mayor, Archer, and a new police chief, Ike McKinnon. And so I was really getting to know McKinnon. I worked the weekend, so I had Monday and Tuesday off. So every Monday and Tuesday on my day off, I actually went to the police station and would just hang out. They'd have these coffee and cakes for people who were retiring. And I'd hang out. I'd just sit on their couches. And I got to know Benny Napoleon and the people in front of in the different departments. And it was great because I was getting stories left and right just by hanging around. Instead of you run over, there's a press conference, you get the information, you run off to the next thing.
Deadline.
Yeah, if you just hang around, and they appreciated that I was there on my time off, and so anyway, so I got to know Benny pretty well. And when this thing happened, Ike was like, Benny, you got this. And he put Benny in front of the national cameras. And Benny became a national star. I don't know if you remember that, but he just had this big smile, and he was on it, and the Detroit police were on it. He said all the right things. He looked great. And, and this was the biggest story in the world.
Huge. Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, I'm just getting to know these guys. I shouldn't really try and take advantage of this thing. And so I didn't call them and say, hey, I need, what's the latest? What's the school? What I do now? I'd be like over them, corner them. You owe me.
Yeah.
And,
hey, it's Kev. What's up?
Right.
Yeah.
So I watched Scott Lewis, who was a great reporter, and Scott's there, and he's like, this is what she was hit with. He pulls out this baton, he's like, it was a baton like this police baton, and then he starts pounding a pumpkin.
This was the baton that they may have used to beat her.
And the pumpkin's shattered all over the place. I'm like, this is amazing. This is so good. And then I called, Benny or somebody in his office, probably Wink, probably.
Sure.
And I said, man, I'm getting killed over here. This Scott Lewis is just crushing this story. You got any crumbs, I can go chase? And they're like, well, why didn't you call? We're wondering where you were, what's your deal? Oh. But they ended up, they did hook me up with a rundown of everywhere this guy was. I think it was Shane Stantz was the guy's name. And so from the airport, they gave me the hotel he stayed at across the street from the airport and the room number, and we were able to go over there and kind of reenact where he was and what he was doing. I was kind of back in the game then, but I learned a lesson on that story. Go. It's a big story. Just go and get after it.
Yeah, no, if Kevin wasn't leading the pack, he caught up real fast. I still remember with the Navigator story when we broke that, Wilson was doing his thing, we were doing our thing at the Free Press, and we're like, okay, what's next? And we turned on Channel 4, and Kevin's there with the Navigator. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's what we do next.
That's what we do.
We try and figure out where the auto theft unit has tucked the Navigator away, and there's Kevin's like, I'm here in this garage, and here's, I was like, shit!
Oh, that must feel so good.
Everyone remembers you from the Kwame story. Everyone remembers me from the Kwame story. When you talk, it's not Naked Golf, it's always Kwame, and everybody, that was kind of the thing. I was telling Charlie LaDuff about this because he's like, he goes, I missed the Kwame thing. I said, well, the thing about...
But he's the only reporter doing stories now.
Well, I said the thing you need to know about Kwame is it takes all of the media from all of the agencies to take somebody really big down. And you don't have that anymore. You don't really see that. Somebody has a story and then everyone just kind of stays away from it. Nobody really digs all in. And I guess, when it's the mayor, everybody digs all in. But obviously you guys getting the text messages broke the thing wide open. It's why you won a Pulitzer and all that. But for TV purposes, we had the gotcha part of that where I had gotten a hold of the letter that he had written to Judge David Groner saying he only had $6 a month to live on.
Right.
And so I went to my bosses and I said, I need to fly down to Texas and follow this guy around and see why he's so broke and why he only has $6 to pay in restitution to the city of Detroit. So we flew down with hidden cameras, and he's living in a mansion mansion bigger than the Manugian. He's driving around his Escalade down there. He'd bring the car, would steal his garbage, which is what all reporters do. And he's got all these video game boxes, just tons of video game boxes and stuff. And
So
he never
did
went to his job. He was supposed to be going to his job for Peter
Covicent.
Covicent. So every morning we were at Covicent, no Kwame, go back to his house. There's Kwame at his house, and he'd go out for lunch or whatever. We followed
So
around.
were you the ones that revealed that house? And it was in
Yeah.
Southlake, right?
Yep,
I believe in
yep,
Texas,
yep.
which was...
I think the Free Press was the first to reveal that he was
That's
living
right.
in that house.
Yep. And then we went down
But
after.
Kevin went down and said, "Here's the house."
Yeah. Well, we followed him around for like 4 or 5 days. And also, while I was down there, I happened to get a phone call, and it was like our last day from Art Blackwell. And,
Oh, God.
And he's like, "What you doing, Kevin?" I'm like, "Well, believe it or not, I'm down here following the mayor on hidden camera. We were coming back, so I didn't care at this point. The
game's
promos were ready to run.
Yep.
And he goes, you got it all wrong, Kevin. You really should talk to him. I said, I'd love to talk to him. If you want to make a call. And he said, well, just go. He said, hold on. And he called me back. He said, go over to his house and he'll come take the garbage out or something, and you can have a talk with him. So I pulled back up there, and Kwame walked down the driveway, and we had a 10-minute conversation, and it obviously made the story 10 times bigger than it would have been. But it was pretty interesting. Just another little dumb luck timing thing, but it worked out. And so then that's where he got the thank you when he got cuffed in Groner's courtroom.
That's right.
He turned around and said, "Thank you, Kevin." He thought that. Again, it was my fault because had I not gone down to Texas and showed that he was living lavishly and could have used some of that money to pay back the people he ripped off in Detroit, that somehow it was my fault that he was in trouble for violating his probation. But
that was around the same time, too. Didn't Carlita get busted at her job with the petty cash?
No, that was years later.
Oh, that was years later.
Yeah,
Okay.
But the funny thing is, after that story came out, Kilpatrick's lawyer said, because we had reported on the plea of poverty too, and he said, you guys got that wrong. And I said, well, what did we get wrong? I mean, it's a legal filing. We quoted from the document that you wrote. How could we have got something wrong? He said, I didn't say the mayor could only afford to pay $6 a month. I said he only had $6 a month left over. And I'm like, and your point is like, we weren't offering the $6. We're just saying. I said, so wait a minute, you want a correction because you're saying he's only got $6 and he doesn't want to give you the $6? He said, that's about right. And I said, well, good luck in court because that's a winner. That argument's going to bring home the prize.
It's really going to go over well.
Yeah, it's like, and of course he did get sent back. So
yeah.
Well, where can people find you now? I know you're doing stuff at JR.
Yeah, he's doing the homeless thing again.
You're right. Actually, to pay the bills, I do. I'm a media consultant, so I have a job. It's DietzConnect.com. I help small businesses and big businesses with crisis media and some PR.
You should help
I
out
do a little coaching up. I could coach you guys up a little bit.
Okay, quickly, what do you think of how the governor's handled the whole trip to Florida?
Oh, fantastic! If you're in the TV
you're
news
in the
business,
news, yeah.
if you're in the news business, fantastic. I tell you what, I don't know if she talked to anyone before she went or not, but what an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to show everybody how you're supposed to do this if you have to do this. I'm going to rent a minivan. I'm going to go down. I'm going to see my dad at a distance outside and come back and be a leader and show how, if you're going to do that, how you're supposed to do that. And make it a publicity thing that helps you out and say, look at the governor. That's how you're supposed to. If you got to go visit your dad, we don't think you should, but if you have to.
She has death threats. She can't do that beforehand.
Yeah, well
she did get death threats. I mean, that was legitimate.
I understand that, but now after the fact.
She could have driven down. She should have driven down, and she should have shown people after she got back.
After the fact
what she did. And then, of course, you just keep covering stuff up. It just keeps coming out.
She has not been well served by her media advisors.
Not one bit.
And this isn't the first time.
But then again, maybe they're doing what she wants them to do.
She's just making mistakes.
Left and right. Yeah. So Dietz Connect, and you're on Twitter and
all that good stuff.
Yeah, we'll have a link on our website, mlsolvedetroit.com. Kevin, thanks for coming in.
Blast.
We'd love to have you again. I guess the other part I left out is that I was filling in at WJR, and then Kevin came and put me out of that job. So
there it
revenge.
is.
Revenge.
That's
there.
right. It's like So I should have
I
killed the
again?
king when I had a chance to kill the king. That's the lesson here. But you can catch him on WJR. He fills in on all the shifts, and of course. check out what he's up to on social media. And we'd love to have you back again because when we're talking about great stories and how to do them, we could never cover that in one session. So
it was really fun.
So let's do that again. And for those of you who don't know much about journalism or about advising politicians, but you need a good haircut.
Oh yeah,
what a professional.
I know where
transition.
They can go. They can go to Lady Jane's.
I just was sort of spitballing, but I guess there is an option for.
I like to help the people out. So Lady Jane's will get you looking and feeling like a king. Go to Lady Jane's. They got a new one in Grand Blanc on Saginaw Road, just south of Hill Road, right next to AutoZone. You can have one of their talented stylists give you an award-winning haircut, invigorating shampoo, hot leather neck shave, hot towel treatment for just $16. Don't procrastinate. Keep your hair looking its best. Get to any of the new Lady Janes. Check them out, ladyjanes.com. And the new one is in Grand Blanc right now. That's the one we're talking about. It is wicked awesome. It is probably helpful if I had this potted up. It is wicked awesome.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
This week's Geek of the Week is a boss who does not care about helping people make money, save money, basically manage their business. But before we get to that guy, I want to tell you about somebody who does care about you and your bottom line and your pocket. That's David Hall of Hall Financial. He's a sponsor of all the shows here on the Red Shovel Network. And right now what he's doing is he's helping keep us on the air, and he's also helping you save money. Rates now, mortgage rates, are in the twos. Who knows where they're going to go? I would not wait too long to take advantage of this. So call today and find out how much a refi could save you every month. Of course, you know that when you do a refi, there's some paperwork and there's a bit of a lag. So you're going to save one or two payments right there. That's money in your pocket immediately. And then once you get that lower rate, you're going to save money every single month. So click on the link for Hall Financial on our website, which will take you to their website. Or you can give them a call at 248-308-5000. That's 248-308-5000. And if you give them a call, make sure to let them know that ML sent you. NMLS 1467435.
Yeah. Who's your geek?
Oh, God.
Let's hear about this geek.
Now that Sean's gone, I feel safe.
I know. Just an empty. That's an empty chair's a nice shot. Look at that. There it is.
Relentless.
That's how you prefer Sean, right there.
That's right. We just said if there's ever a picture that captures his contribution, the show. So we're just talking about CEO of Kroger, Rodney McMullen, who can't seem to get it right. He started off pretty good, recognizing the risks that his employees were exposed to by keeping the shelves full and helping keep America from starving in the middle of a crisis that we hadn't quite grasped. So he gave a hero bonus of $2 an hour to his workers. Seems pretty righteous, seems pretty fair. And frankly, of all the businesses who were in danger during the pandemic, pizza shops and grocery stores seem to be pretty safe. And so he was wise in recognizing that and keeping his workers coming in and exposing themselves to risk. But after 2 months, he pulled that raise, and that was kind of shithouse. But guess what?
What?
Now we learn that during that year when he dangled that little bit of an incentive out and then snatched it away, he pulled in $22.4 million. That's the most compensation he received in any year since becoming CEO in 2014. And while Rotten Rodney was raking in a 6% raise, it turns out the median employee salary for people at Kroger's fell by 8%. So Rodney, while putting the green in your pockets and keeping it away from the folks who put the green on the shelves, you, sir, not only got $22.4 million, you gave us 22.4 million reasons why you're our Geek of the Week.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Before you come on into room 7609, You got to have a good strategy.
My key's not working.
What?
It's one of those swipe keys. They never work. I got to go back to the front desk. Mark, take over for a minute.
I want to tell you about investing. Overreaction, it's not the best strategy if you're going to invest long-term. Neither is burying your head in the sand and hoping everything just turns out fine. You got to call someone who knows what they're doing, and that's Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748. Rational financial advice. We're coming out of COVID. What does that mean? Where should you put your money? Just let Luke figure it out. Stocks or bonds, 401ks, 529s, all that fun stuff. Once again, Luke Nowacki, Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748. He will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services.
I didn't even give him the chance.
That's my line.
FINRASIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Kevin was so good, I couldn't spare 1 second.
No, I know. We got to keep it tight. They only gave him 2.5 minutes. We gave him an hour. So take that, broadcast news. So it's interesting when you're running for office, you get donations from people that surprise you. And I got a donation from a guy who I once competed with for editor-in-chief of the State News. Ooh. And I was filling out...
Who won?
I won the popular vote, the people's vote, but he won the boss vote, and that was the end of that.
Did you do the Geek of the Week?
Yes. Okay. While you were upstairs, it just happened.
It was a live.
We were working on the air
read.
conditioning.
Good.
It just entered the room, and so
I've just developed the flu while sitting here. But
he's freezing, and I didn't know. You probably heard.
I was trying to figure out why it was only cold here. I finally walked over there and realized that the air is blowing over the top and then dropping here. Because the cold air falls, and you don't feel it, and Kevin didn't feel it. Thank goodness. We don't want to treat our guests to the.
No, I felt
the instant flu that way.
My passion for entertaining and informing just keeps me warm.
It's like being in a hotel room in the summer in a cheap one when the
air's just blowing right on one person.
Right on you, yeah. I know. Yeah. And you wake up with a sore throat and Legionnaire's disease.
Wow, so remind me not to go on the Windsor family vacation next year. That doesn't really sound like something that they're booking through.
No, but anyway, sorry to interrupt. I'm glad the Geek of the Week is done. So good. Thank you.
Actually, I was just going to... Is the Geek of the Week done? Or did you have something else to say?
Fuck it. Oh, fuck it. Yes, that's your answer. That's your answer to everything.
The bum's
Tattoo it
lost.
on your forehead. Your revolution is over, Mr. Windsor. Condolences. The bum's lost. My advice to you is to do what your parents did. Get a job, sir. The bums will always lose. Do you hear me, Windsor?
Always lose.
When did you put that together?
Just now, when you're upstairs.
Ad lib. That's awesome.
That's
a little not ad lib, a little improvised.
No, ML knew that you would be shitty sometime today. So.
I knew that. I knew there'd be an opportunity to.
That's nice
for a well-crafted production.
That's nice.
Your donors.
Anywho, so
back to your donors.
I'm writing a thank you card to this gentleman, and I realized that in addition to sending a thank you, at some point I should go through my CD collection and return a CD that somehow, through means that I don't exactly recall, was conveyed from his possession to my possession, and that CD was Tones on Tail. And one of the great Tones on Tail tunes is a little ditty called Go.
big ticket's good for you. Once the big free slip, crack the jump or get out of control. You put yourself down, you'll never get out of that hole. Keep your mind off your head, or you'll never, ever get old. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Go! Your whole world can change if only you just grow through. Through the fears inside your head, 'cause your fears are doing nothing for you. Keep your head up, your mind up, you'll always, always come through. 'Cause living it up is a big deal, it's good for you. So you know, great thoughts of fizzy bars you can stand up to. Don't put yourself down, you'll never win, so let's all smash through. Through the fear of being real, through the fear of being really you. 'Cause living it up, it's a big kick, it's good for you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Living it up is a big kick, it's good for you. Living it up is a big kick, it's good for you. Living it up is a big kick, it's good for you. Living it up, it's a big kick, it's good for you.
Oh, you wanted to hear that part? Sorry.
I love.
You never like talking out a song, do you?
I don't even like stepping on the intro because whenever I used to record music off the radio with a cassette, I'd always get the damn DJ talking. But you and Rob Walchek told me that's the way it's supposed to be. That you're supposed to hit the post just before the lyric starts. But I
gotta
like,
keep it tight, man. No time to waste.
I like to have the whole. What, we're wasting time.
Speaking
now?
of which,
so let me just tell you a little bit about Tones on Tail. It was sort of a side project of Daniel Ash, who was the guitar player from Bauhaus that he formed with a roommate and a roadie for Bauhaus, and kind of got things going. Then Bauhaus fell apart, and Kevin Haskins, the drummer from Bauhaus, became part of Tones on Tail. And they put out some really great music. Their very limited catalog is all top-notch stuff. But then Kevin and Daniel teamed up with David J., who is Daniel's brother, who plays bass, also a refugee from Bauhaus. And they formed Love and Rockets, who you've heard here before in Room 7609, whose big radio hit was So Alive, but they had so many more good tunes. And then, of course, as bands often do, they split up as well. But Tones on Tail, great driving beat. There is a local connection via Hollywood, so I guess it's not really local. But you would have heard this in the dance scene at the high school reunion in Grosse Pointe Blank, which, of course, was not filmed at all in Grosse Pointe. But Tones on Tail's great side project. Just terrific driving music. Some people would say it's post-punk, less than new wave, but I disagree.
I've never heard of the band before, but that song sounded familiar, so looking it up. Not only was it in Grosse Pointe Blank, it's been in Beverly Hills 90210. It was in the movie Party Monster, which is a good movie if anyone's seen it. Ford used it in a commercial. Rick and Morty used it in a promo. It's been sampled in other songs, so it's been reused a lot.
So if you know anything about my
cool
viewing
song.
habits, you know that's all news to me because I haven't seen
Oh,
any
I
of those
know.
shows. But
yeah, my college roommate used to listen to that all the time.
That's a cool song. I
Tones
love
on
it.
Tail was awesome. I'm so sorry that they broke up, except that
Well,
they
you got all the other bands.
except
out
they
there.
turned into Love and Rockets, which I also love. So that was great. Anyways, Room 7609 is the place where you will find those new wave groups that you never heard of before, or the hidden gems in the catalog of the new wave bands that you thought you knew so well. We have some suggestions we're going to try and queue up in future weeks. Please contact us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com with your suggestions for Room 7609. You can also call and leave a message for us with the suggestion. The phone number is Butterfield 89070. That's 313-288-9070. We love to get your feedback. And if you want to show your Room 7609 pride, check out one of our super cool motel keychains. I guarantee it'll unlock a slightly nicer room than Sean's used to. Legionnaire free. You can get that at drewandmikestore.com. William, who's a big fan of new wave music, not only checked out our various websites, he donated, which you can also do at mlsoulofdetroit.com. And he sent us a double sawbuck along with this note. Room 7609 suggestion. Feel free to give Depeche Mode a rest. How about some American new wave like the B-52s?
Yeah.
Strobe Light, 52 Girls, Mesopotamia. William, I totally agree. B-52s are awesome. Those may be a little too well known, but we will scour.
They'd be too enjoyable. Sorry, William.
We would.
Mesopotamia, by the way, is a great song.
Oh, there's a lot of ruins in Mesopotamia.
Yeah. Okay, where's Cyrus, by the way?
He's waiting for you outside the door, so you go first. We timed this.
You know,
we timed this
there are other
carefully.
shows on the network. Blah blah blah. What else? Oh, yeah, that'd be great if y'all donate. Are we about done now?
So you wanted to rush this, right? So you just reiterated everything we just said, but I'm not sure how that accomplishes your goals. But anyway, we will scour that B-52's catalog.
We're going to have to save all that wonderful feedback about Sean for next week, I guess.
Oh, yeah. No, we have...
Lots of great Sean feedback.
There was no feedback about me.
Tons.
None.
You don't see it.
Yeah, no. There's two show preps. There's the one that we do, and then there's the one we do that when you get here. So
when he eats his crackers,
one is a little more elaborate. I want to put you on alert, folks. Our pre-sale for our sweet ass Soul of Detroit bike is wrapping up soon. You have until the end of the month to order one of these custom, handmade in Detroit bikes. There will never be another bike like this, and I don't want to be the only one riding around on one. So please go to drewandmikestore.com and pick out your own Soul Roll Patrol bike. It's super cool. It's made in collaboration with Detroit Bikes. If you buy one of these bikes, you have two delivery options or two possession options. One is go pick it up at the plant, in which case the owner, Zach Pashik, will give you a tour of the Detroit Bikes facility on the west side. It's a cool tour. I've done it. You should definitely check it out. Or, if you're willing to pay a little premium, I will deliver the bike myself, and or Sean will, if he survives the Legionnaire disease. And he will bring some crackers.
Sure, crackers, milk duds.
So yeah, some sorbet and a little
red licorice.
Did you do the nibs? Do you like the strawberry red licorice or the cherry?
I like them both.
Okay,
I like everything.
I had a feeling.
Did you guys see the movie Whiplash?
You are so positive. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. We were trying to rush this, but tell us about Whiplash.
It's 2 seconds. The dad, Paul Reiser, right? They takes his son to the movie. They get a big tub of popcorn, and they take what is it? I can't remember what the candy is, but they dump it on top of the popcorn. That's how they eat it.
That's gross.
So maybe you would like to try that, Mike.
I think I might like to try editing that portion of the show just to keep this under 90 minutes.
No. I'm trying to say we're done.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your menu suggestions, we were done a while ago. Want to tell you a little bit about something going on this weekend, May 22nd, the Motor City Makeover. If you would like to join me and my team in cleaning up Detroit, send me an email at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. We will give you an assignment to help us clean up the city of Detroit. In addition to that, you will get a free campaign T-shirt. They are super groovy, and you'll get a feeling of fellowship and an accomplishment. So please join us as we try and clean up Detroit this Saturday, May 22nd, for the Motor City Makeover. If you want to support my campaign, you can donate. Go to ml4detroit.com. That's ml4detroit.com. And you can learn more about the campaign, how to volunteer, how to donate, how to help make a positive difference, and how to bring positive change back to Detroit. And every donor will get a sweet Union Made ML for Detroit thank you card. And if you want to follow us on social media, it's ML for Detroit on all platforms. I was going to ask Sean what he's up to, but apparently it's battling some sort of disease he contracted at a no-tell motel somewhere when he was on the road. And I just want to tell you that one reason why we got to get out of here is so that we can make room for the Drew and Mike Show, which is the leading intellectual property of the Red Shovel Network. So check that out. And if you got some spare time, see what that crazy cat Charlie LaDuff is up to at the No BS News Hour. It's a little itty-bitty show on the network we're trying to boost up with our massive audience and obvious appeal to the masses. And
sex appeal.
And with that, I don't know. It's just appeal.
Anything else to add, Sean?
No.
Do you want to invite our friend in to take us out?
Cyrus, or is it Siri?
Cyrus? Whoa, wow.
Siri, Cyrus.
Start over.
Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Well, this is the last chapter to a story I was afraid might have an unhappy ending.
Mark Fellhaus.
His father is free. The district attorney has
John Windsor.
And the stolen jewelry and Johnny? Johnny is out of the hospital.
Mr. Elric.
What did you say, Johnny?
I said you might have been killed going up to the apartment like that.
No, I was safe for the DA just outside the door.
Gosh, and you figured it all out by yourself.
No, you helped too when you telephoned me. And I hate to mention this kid, but did you bring the $18 with you?
Sure I did. I pay off, you know. Here.
Oh, thanks, kid. I was just a little worried.
I was going to pay before,
Mr. Elric.
But I didn't think you needed money that bad.
I needed it to put with this check. Here. There was a $500 reward for recovering the jewelry, and it's going to a bank account for you.
$500? Gee, gosh, I guess I'm rich.
Johnny, what are you going to do with all that money?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is take you out and buy you...
Solar Detroit bike.
Next week, same time.
ML Elric.
Stars as Dan Holliday in
The Soul of Detroit.